Welcome to Brash Ag, the farm innovation podcast with hosts Raymond King and Kit Franklin.
Namaste, Raymond.
Namaste. How are you doing? It's a different venue and setting for us today.
We are recording live in front of a studio audience today, Ray, coming at you from louder Rent-A-Crowd. They're really louder than that.
We've got podcast number 1 fan here, and number 2 and number 3 as well.
And they look like they are like brothers from another mother in their caps and glasses. Anyway, so we're here at Groundswell, Raymond. We're recording in a lovely podcasting studio tent. Tell us something about it.
Kindly here, we were invited by the Sustainable Food Trust, and they have had support from the Rothschild Foundation. They invited us to the podcast tent here at Groundswell. So if there's any noise or anything in the background, it proves to you it's live. We should probably start with you've never been to Groundswell, and now you've fully immersed yourself. So what activities have you got up to?
What haven't I got up to, Raymond? I started my day yesterday. You would like this. I don't know if I told you. I started with a women in deer management talk, which I just slipped into. It was interesting. There was talk about the emotions of deer stalking, and I could relate to that. So that was a good start.
Yeah.
Mooched around the show. Kieran and I started cocktailing at about 1 o'clock without any lunch. And we ended up on the Yo Valley after party bar till 4 in the morning.
Very good, yes. Well, I did check. I had some LinkedIn notifications from a certain Kit Franklin that I saw when I was having my breakfast at 5 o'clock this morning, 2 hours previous to my breakfast time. So I knew that you'd had a good evening.
Yeah, well, not only that, Ray, Kieran and I have sorted us out. We've got study tours of New Zealand lined up. We've got study tours of Montana lined up. We are international now with our agenda for the winter. And on top of that, we did get ourselves out of bed, and namaste, we went to yoga.
Yeah,
so we started with yoga this morning and loved it.
Oh yeah, I mean you look absolutely revitalised today. You definitely didn't look like you've been out till 3 o'clock in the morning. Best I've ever seen you.
Well, this is the key, Ray. So, namaste by name, namaste by nature. Now, that's the way we're rolling.
Very good. Other than all the fun and frivolities, what are your kind of key takeaways and interesting points? We do have a special guest here, so we'll get onto that shortly. But what are your sort of takeaways as a Groundswell virgin?
Well, so it is. I'm going to sound like I'm being stupid again, but it's not. It's a really interesting thing. The toilets here are clean and they work. Okay, no other show is that ever achieved. So does that say something about the participants? I don't know, but it's an interesting thing. The other thing is the amount of females here. It's proper 50-50 split, if not probably even leaning the other direction. So, I mean, again, I'm not going to tell you I'm suddenly a regen evangelist, but there is some noticeable differences here than other shows. I've been all over my biology, really, right? We've been checking biological teas, biological extracts. We've been whisking extracts in barrels.
We're headed there after this, aren't we? You've told me about a demonstration of a particular mixing.
The engineering in it, Ray, is worth looking at. The therapeuticness of the stirring is worth it. Yeah, and the chap who is living the dream is worth a chat as well.
Yeah. Well, we went to see a client of mine, Left Field Agriculture. We had a good conversation with them. So keep your ears peeled in the future for a short interview with them. They're talking all about their inter-row robotic mower.
Yeah, and Kieran's getting all the mentions, but Kieran actually stood in for you yesterday, and we interviewed.
Yeah, I know.
Some SAP analysis we did yesterday. That was good. We went and saw Ben Taylor Davis talk about his new book, Regen Ben, a tour de force in the world of regen. He has put a book together that's, and I say put together because it's like completely random. It's got 2 fronts. The pages are all alternately printed. And that was emotional. So he talked about his background and what took him to write the book, and that was really great and very well attended by lots of people. So that was really great. And I don't know. I don't think I'm being that insightful here, Ray. So maybe let's.
Should we introduce our?
I think we probably should. Yeah.
So we're joined by Stuart Oates, who kindly put us on to this opportunity to podcast.
I've just remembered we're having a video done as well. I've been talking at you the whole time, not at the film.
Well,
Hi, everyone.
You don't need to watch the video, don't worry. You talk to each other, ignore the cameras.
so yeah.
Look to the side of the camera, not at the camera, Ray. Have you done TV work?
Right, no, I've not done TV work. So Stuart, you kindly invited us on. The topic of this talk, other than us talking complete nonsense at the start, is can technology deliver fossil-free farming? And I think it'd be great if you could kind of introduce yourself and then the concept and kind of how you got to where you got to with that, and then maybe we could have a bit of a round table or oval table as we're sat at, all about our thoughts and feelings around the role of technology in fossil-free farming.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much for inviting me on, and thanks for coming into our podcast tent. Besides being a farmer, I also work with Sustainable Food Trust, so we're hosting this podcast tent here this year, so it's really cool that you guys have come in to use it. It's great to be able to talk about my subject, which is came about, I guess, 2 years ago when I started my Nuffield Farming Scholarship. So for the last couple of years, I've been going all over the world looking at how we can reduce and remove fossil fuels in all of their forms from agriculture. And I do mean all agriculture as well. So it's not just for the organic guys, not just for the regens. Like, how can we get rid of fossil fuels? Because when we look at most of the problems in the world, somehow or other, it always goes back to fossil fuels. Whether it's power during a war, some crazy dictators decided to do something around the world. Probably it was propped up by oil money. The effect of microplastics going everywhere is all about oil. It's all the forever chemicals. Most of them are oil derived. There are all these things in society where it's all wrapped up around health, around pollution in the air and people's lungs, causing more problems. Just everything always seems to go back to these fossil fuels. So I think, well, let's try and do something about something I have vague amounts of control over, and that's agriculture. We've been farming since 1750 on my farm, from 7th generation, and we've been organic since 1999. And I went off to university and studied organic agriculture at the Royal Agricultural College at the time, now the RAU. And came home to the farm, and it was always the weird one, I guess, that I was the organic people, and then more farms over the years have sort of come on board with all of that. But our impact is still too much, I think. I was doing a trial 2 years ago because I'm looking at putting sisal twine on round bales, because one day when I was cutting off the net wrap that we have on our round bales, I just cut it across, and I thought, there's loads of bits of plastic all thrown off everywhere, microplastics. And I said, I wonder how clean I could cut that off. So I got the sharpest knife, brand new blade on my Stanley, and I cut perfectly across. And still, there were like 10 or 20 pieces of microplastic coming straight off there. I was like, well, if that happens every single time, that's thousands and thousands of every year going into my animals, going into the soil. So I thought, I'll use sisal twine instead. So I've been trying to look at how we can do that. And I realized there's just no one talking about these problems, really. So I thought, well, I've got to go off and see what we can do, find loads of solutions to all sorts of different problems. And I'm a real tech obsessive. I love renewables. I love tractors. I've been driving tractors since I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something like that. And I had my little Fergie TE20 when I first started, and I was playing around with cars all over the farm. So I love the role of tech and everything in the solutions as well. And I think we're only now, very much now, able to start removing fossil fuels in all of their different forms, and that is fertiliser, it's chemicals, inputs, it is the fuel, of course, but it's also about whether we can become part of the solution as well, of energy producers, so help other fibre producers so that we're not having so much man-made fibres in our clothes, things like that. There's so many opportunities out there.
Cool. So you have started on this journey, or are you feeling like you're starting to win on your farm at home with this? Right. What? I guess name some technologies that you've used that are working. Do you see yourself? The whole seeing is believing thing is really important.
Yeah.
So, So some people did that with some automation stuff, which we're not allowed to mention on the pod anymore.
Oh, you're not.
And that thing of, rather than just talking about autonomous farming, seeing it made a lot of people go, okay, and that drove a lot of interest, and it drove a lot of farmers to be interested. So, are you using your farm as that resource as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think people say, oh, why aren't you doing that 100%? Well, actually, I'd rather spend my time doing my own farm as a demo site for as many things as I can, but really I want to get off the farm and try and have bigger impacts on bigger spaces, honestly. We are quite niche. We don't produce masses of food. We're organic, we're beef and sheep, and we do grow arable crops as well, but only in small quantities, mostly ancient grains, things like that. But I think going out and doing, if I could get 10% reduction in fertiliser in 10,000 hectares, it's way better than me being 100% fossil free. Because the biggest one, by far, is fertiliser, by the way. The use of fossil fuels on farms. For 1 ton of fertiliser, it takes 1 ton of gas, which is the oil equivalent. And that is ridiculous. I actually travelled around the world in my nut field, and everyone's like, oh, you'll be burning loads of fossil fuel. You're absolutely right. But you have to break some eggs to make an omelette. So I worked out what was my emissions from my whole travel. 50,000 miles, 90% of my emissions were from flying. And it's only the equivalent of 3.5 tons of fertiliser. This impact that we're having from agriculture must not be underestimated. So you asked what we're doing on our farm. Well, number one, we're organic. We don't use any artificial fertiliser. So instantly, that's the biggest one gone. Fuel-wise, which is the most visible, I suppose, certainly the one people would come up with when you talk about it, we've moved our tractors all over to HVO fuel, which is hydrotreated vegetable oils. Works perfectly. It actually burns cleaner with more power than normal diesel, and that's made with waste oils from all over the place. So it's like a 90% reduction in CO2 equivalent. It's pretty good. Definitely, it's not the end goal. It's very much a transition for us. But we also moved our buggy, so we've got a Polaris Kinetic buggy, and to be honest, it's just better, way better. We came from a diesel one. What a slug! Yeah, it didn't use a lot of fuel, but gosh, it's a slug. Now we've currently got a petrol one on loan because ours has just gone in for a bit of work to be done. It's fast, nowhere near as fast as the electric one, but it's really thirsty, unreliable, noisy. So in that setting, electric's perfect. We drive it; it does 56 miles an hour. We drive all over. I register it as a car, so you can drive it anywhere. And so that's a really good option. And then we've got all of my cars have gone over to electric. So just all the standard stuff. There's a lot of driving around. We manage about 1,500 acres over our sort of Lizard Peninsula. But it's all quite spread out. So there's loads of driving between, and so that's great as well. We managed to achieve that, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. I want to carry on increasing the amount of benefits as well. So it's not about just reducing; it's about creating benefits. And so energy is where the biggest opportunity lies for farming. I actually call it the biggest opportunity in a generation for farmers to make money. And people talk about in this setting here at Groundswell, they talk about how do you pay for the transition? Well, to be perfectly honest, you just go and put in some renewable energy. It's unbelievably profitable if you pair it with batteries, if you milk the system to help the grid in the right places. And actually it's cheaper. We're really efficient as farmers to be the solution to energy sovereignty in this country. We own the land where it can happen. We're really good at getting stuff done with really low amounts of inputs, whether it's chemicals, whether it's actually time and just engineering solutions. So there's a big thing in that. So I'm currently working on a project trying to get loads more solar onto our farm, but also massive batteries. We start grid trading. And an EV charging network, trying to set up a rural EV charging network based on farms, which will help us electrify the whole rural areas, which currently are really underserved with EV chargers. But if we can do it in the way I'm proposing, it'll be really cheap to do, so the economics stack up. But also, you unlock this potential for HGVs, all transport to go electric, going up and down the country, and then you unlock that potential for your farm vehicles to go electric. And that's my next project as well. I'm going to hopefully get an electric tractor I'm hoping to get one from over in France to come over and do another trial and a dot trial, actually, running an electric tractor in our farming system and see how it works.
I suppose it'd be interesting, I think, to dig into the fertiliser piece, because I think that was perhaps a bit of an eye-opener for me. I didn't really think about it in that respect. As an engineer, I'd probably go immediately to, a tractor doing a thing in a field, and you think, right, okay, well, there's emissions there. But I suppose the fertiliser one, do you see the solution in a transition to organic production, or do you see a solution in alternative routes to generating fertilizers?
I think I'm going to stay on track of it's about global agriculture. Is the globe going to go organic? Absolutely no chance. I'm sorry, it's not. I wish they would. It's not going to happen. But we can get partway down that road. That's why regen's the perfect moment to be jumping in on that. We now know there's more life under our soils than on the surface. And we know the impact of that life under the soil about grabbing nutrients from far away from the plants and bringing them in. So creating life in soil can do so much of the work of that fertilizer, and it's so much more predictable in many ways. When I was in Brazil, they've gone way into, it's not about fertilizer so much, but it's about chemicals. They've really gone down the road of biological controls because, to be honest, the chemicals were failing. They were unreliable. And it's way cheaper to work with nature than against, because nature always wins. So if you can find all these other solutions and integrating livestock into your rotations, putting down undersowing your crops with clover so it's going to fix its own nitrogen, because of that, by the way, a ton of fertilizer might go onto the ground. It only gets taken up at 25-30%, if that. So the rest has still gone back into the atmosphere. You've paid for it, it's gone again. Fungal nitrogen fixation is a totally different beast. It's basically 100% efficient, because once it's down there until it's released again by ploughing or by the crop that's taking it up. So I think there's loads of solutions already. But you can also make fertilizer using renewable energy. We are in a position now where renewable production of energy is at certain times way too much for us to consume. We don't have the storage capacity to store it and use it later. I can hear a car alarm. Sorry for everyone. But there's that extra power could be used to sort of make hydrogen, basically, for the Harvard wash process. So there are other ways of making the same stuff if we wanted to. But I think we need to value it a lot higher and find better ways of nature working for itself.
Yeah, that point is really interesting about the whole balancing the grid thing and saying, well, yeah, we need to build essentially enough renewable energy that we can satisfy our needs on a bad day, but then that going to create a huge glut on a good day. So we need to imaginatively utilize that energy. The problem with that is that's very top level systematic thinking that's required. Are you seeing, from where you sit, are you seeing anyone thinking that systematically in this country? Because I don't see it from government. I see disjointedness, and I see ministers who chop and change every 2 seconds. And how can we ever... And frankly, they operate in silos. So, is the energy department talking to the agriculture department and saying we could be utilising this power on farms in this certain way at, whatever? It's just not going to happen, is it? It's all way too siloed. So how do we get over that? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you're exactly correct. You cannot rely on someone else to do it. We have to do it ourselves. And there are ways of getting in amongst it. I'm actually putting together a consortium at the moment of farmers, energy, measurement folks, someone who's built an AI model working on the energy usage around farms and where you can harvest energy or store energy. So say, for example, milk. You could cool milk by an extra 2 degrees and then not cool it for a while. That's essentially a battery. So if you could, I worked out just the other day that if you took all of the dairy farms, all of the pig farms, and all of the poultry farms in this country, and you put a battery, just a battery on those farms that was correctly sized to be able to supply all of their energy during peak periods, and also put out the amount, whatever's available on their grid connection to put out power at the same time, which is perfectly feasible. If you did that, we could supply basically all of the flexibility that the grid is currently put a call out looking for, 2 gigawatts. And they're hoping to do it by 2030 from consumer demand. And there's just been a call out, a £25 million pot to say, someone come up with a solution. Well, I think we found a good solution here, so we have to join them up. Because you're right, they won't. They won't see it like that in any way. Agriculture is over here. It does food, some sort of things for nature maybe, but energy is something that a solar developer does. Someone with massive amounts of money offshore will harvest money out of our landscape and take it away. If we start owning that ourselves as farmers, as communities, it's a massive money stream for ourselves. We keep our money local. We choose where things get to go. We do fill our roofs first, or as at the same time as filling our fields. Lots of small solar farms around. Actually, we don't really need them to talk to each other. If the money stacks up, which it does, we just need a little few pots to do the trials, and then we can roll it out because it's a no-brainer.
Just to put an anecdote on top of what you were saying about the batteries aren't necessarily batteries, Tesco's did a really interesting thing several years ago working with Lincoln University where they basically used all their fridges and if there's a peak in the network anyway, they just the fridges will get turned off and you're only talking for 5 minutes, so they don't get cold enough. And because they've got so many fridges around the country, you can take a spike off. You can take the top off the spike,
Yeah.
So the classic one, switch the kettle on after Strictly Come Dancing, wasn't it? That's the one they.
That's exactly it. It's such short times that these peak demands are. We were building out billions and billions on our national grid infrastructure to upgrade it to be able to cope with, because our grid has never been designed for power coming in from everywhere, and certainly not coming from the North Sea. That was just not where it was supposed to be made. So we're now having to spend absolutely tons of billions, but really not for all the time. It's for very short periods. So if we could draw power down, drip feed it down and store it in distributed systems, which is basically like, if we put, the ideal situation is every farm has a container battery on. It's so easy to fit on a farm, isn't it? You could lose a container in no time. That would be and then we can put them anywhere you want. Farms are everywhere. They surround every population. They are on the worst bits of the grid, the best bits of the grid. We can have different types of battery systems to support different things. You can have ones that react really fast and have very short-term delivery. You can have ones which have much longer-term delivery and gives that longer buffer.
I think having worked on a few sort of renewable technologies, one of the challenges we had, we were installing modular anaerobic digesters, shipping containers. Yeah. And the whole idea was, generate gas from just slurry, so no other input other than the slurry. Great, you don't have any feeding of the system as such. Generate gas, generate electricity, feed that back into the farm, run the dairy, and also potentially feed some to the grid. The real crux of that issue was that technology often needs a connection to the grid, even if it's just to set itself up so that it understands. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but you need a grid connection. The challenges we had were every single farm had a different connection, and every single farm had a different. We had one farm we were doing an installation where it had two-phase. I didn't even know the two-phase thing until that. Right, yeah. But they had two-phase. Yeah. Then you go to another one that's got three, and another one that's got single-phase. So I think one of the challenges is the sort of infrastructure piece around the stranded. You can get farms generating electricity. It's making sure it's not stranded electricity and it can make its way into the grid. And I think that's where there needs to be some joined up thinking from either farmers together or the grid or government or all three.
Yeah, well, you look at most dairies at the moment. So dairies are a real classic example of a lot of the farms who are on these tiny split phase connections, but dragging loads of power out of it. Patrick, who I work with in the Sustainable Food Trust, he's a dairy farmer. He spends £2,000 a month on electric. I've got a pig farmer friend who spends £10,000 a month on electric. Patrick would love to put more solar on his farm. He's got 10 kilowatts. He is not allowed to put any more solar on his farm because of his grid connection size, because he might export power back out of more than 10 kilowatts, which is obviously then could cause trouble in the grid. that needs to be fixed. He needs 100 kilowatts of solar on his roof and a damn big battery which will supply him 6 months of the year. He can top it up in the night for cheaply, and all he needs is a system which is basically a hard link, a hard block that says it will not let you export more than 10 kilowatts. Now, getting that from the grid, getting them to agree, is a pain. It's a real nightmare. It's a G100 connection, essentially, it's called. And you need this specialist equipment. But it's perfectly achievable. It's not something weird and new. It's been around for years. And if we could unlock that idea, well, his electric bill's going to go through the floor. A battery on his farm would pay for itself in 2 to 3 years. The returns are massive if you are a high energy user. But even if you are, for me, I'm just about to put in a 1 megawatt hour battery, so 1,000 kilowatts and kilowatt hours, but on a 230 kVA connection. So it's going to be a pretty decent size. I'm not going to use all that power, but what I will do is trade on the grid. And so I can then draw power down at the night cheaply, sell it in the peak times. My land space is cheap or was free. Let's be honest, it's free. I own the connection because it's just there, and that's where I'll put my my battery, which is very rare for most businesses. They don't own the space where the 11 kV line goes over you. And so now I can go back on the grid. And, the returns on just trading on the grid is like this year, it was up to like £90,000 per megawatt hour. Well, you can buy a megawatt hour for like 130,000. Well, that's pretty damn good. So that's just on the grid trading side of things. So, and then if you link it into the idea of having battery EV chargers as well, it's just so much opportunity there.
So to pull us away from fixed infrastructure and take us to mine and Ray's happy place, which is tractors and machinery. You say you're bringing over a tractor from France. Tell us about that. What is that? What make? What model? What are you hoping to do with it? What are your concerns going in, etc.
Yeah, so this is very, very early stages. I've already got an adopt project looking at upscaling the value of farm-produced energy, and it kind of links into my battery and putting solar on. So we'll put another 100 kilowatts of solar on, possibly even 200 kilowatts of solar. And so then I'll have this amazing resource. Everyone says, what's the next fuel going to be? JCB says it's hydrogen. New Holland say it's methane. John Deere aren't really sure. They're going with all sorts of things. But I really think it's going to be electric. It's just so much more efficient. The creation of hydrogen is just for that use. It's just and the transport of it and the failure points in all the mechanics of it all is just too great. And also use the JCB system. Sorry guys, but it's still an engine. It's still wasting heat deliberately. It's just a really, really inefficient way of because you're going to make that hydrogen, you've probably got to use electric power. It's probably like 20% efficient compared to, and where you've got electric, you're up at 90%. And it's so controllable. I've been driving an electric car for the last 7 years now. And it's faster, it's way quieter. And if you drive an electric tractor around the yard, it's so controllable. It's just perfect. If you're in a telehandler, it's a no-brainer to be electric. Hydrostatic transmission is wildly inefficient. Torque converters, even worse. They're just horrendous things. Electric is built for that job around the yard, precision work. You don't need a giant battery for that. So I believe it's going to go electric. And the only thing standing in its way is battery density and weight. Mm-hmm. And charging, I suppose, but like I just said, it's perfectly feasible to install charging infrastructure now. So that weight, if we were to double the density of batteries, which is very likely because of solid state, I think it will happen. Oh, you go on.
Well, I'm just going to say, hydrogen is the fuel of the future and always will be. There's a bit of a joke within the energy industry. Yeah. And the same sort of joke can be said is starting to come true about the batteries are going to double in density in the next year, because I think I've heard that for 10 years now. Yeah. And yes, at some point they may, but at the moment it does seem to be somewhat stuck. And solid state, I agree, the science of it's great, and I'd love to see it happen, but at the moment it hasn't, and people have been promising it for quite a long time now.
have,
So
yeah.
I am just wary of that claim because it's been made a long time.
You're right. I remember Toyota said they were going to have solid-state batteries in 2022.
Yeah.
And that's a while ago now. So, yeah, go on.
I was going to say, I think it's just for me. I was actually having this conversation with Will, who I brought up with me to the show.
Front row, Will.
Front row down there, yeah. So we were having a discussion exactly about this. So it's quite weird that we're talking about it now in a way. But my thoughts were there's a lot of it that's around use case at the moment and how the use case works. And I think the hydrogen piece for me, like I'm not Mr. JCB. Not going to cut me in half and find me black and yellow, but I think they see the use case of with excavators where they're saying, well, not in the UK so much, but in other parts of the world, that excavator's constantly working. Mm-hmm. So they're on that sort of charging piece of how do we charge it and how do we make that happen. They've also invested a lot of money in engine technology. So don't get me wrong. I understand that framing, but I think for me it's the use case piece. And I suppose the question to you would be, what do you see as the most challenging use case? So this is a gauntlet to the engineers in our audience.
Yeah.
What's the most challenging use case you can see at the moment for electrification that's currently covered by an internal combustion engine?
Yeah, so, okay, I didn't think it was possible to do it now. So I just talked about it'll go wholesale into electric at double density. But actually, the batteries are already excellent. And so if you look at the HGV market, so the HGV market is, so China is, we're all following China, aren't we? Let's be honest at the moment around this kind of tech world around electrification. In December, 50% of all new trucks in China were electric. Now, if that happened then, it's going to happen in another month and another month and another month. And that's also definitely going to happen here. So while all use cases won't be possible, you're absolutely right. Most people do not drive their excavator 24 hours a day. Some do. We don't. We have an excavator, I'd quite happily, but also look at the amount of metal in an excavator deliberately put there to make it heavy. Weight is not a problem in an excavator, and to be honest, a lot of them are massive. You could get a huge battery in an excavator. I reckon you could probably get 3 megawatt hours in some of those big excavators. And so, it's... I don't think there's much of an argument around most of the use cases. Now back to the farm, you're right. Again, there are some use cases. Some people plough non-stop, 24 hours a day, double shifting in a 500 horsepower tractor. Are they going to be the person that goes electric first? No, they're not. On our farm, where we are, most of the work we do, even though we're spread out around our area, most of the work we go out, do the job and come back. And we can certainly stop somewhere and probably come back and charge if needed. Now, you asked me which tractor I was going to use. I'm looking at the Cedarol one, which is over in France. It's got, the specs are just coming out now. It's not completely sorted, but it's looking like it's going to have a 400 kilowatt hour battery. Now, if you hit 400 kilowatt hours, that's a really exciting potential. You've got the electric Tesla Semi. That's got a range of something like 300 or 400 miles or something like that with an 800 kilowatt hour battery. So you've still got like 200 miles nearly of range in your tractor. That's a lot of silage carting, and that would be, by the way, towing a 40-ton trailer or whatever it is.
So just again, specifics on the tractor. What sort of equivalent horsepower are you talking about on this machine? So is it
that one's 170 horsepower, boost to 240.
Right.
But I currently run a Kubota M7170, 172. So it's 170 horsepower. So it's really close.
So it's comparable. Yeah.
So the plan will be that we will get that tractor, and maybe it won't work out. Someone needs to do it. Someone needs to get that tractor, run it just like every other tractor, charge it just like you need to, put it under massive stress at stressful times of year, and see if we can break it. See if we can run out of charge somewhere. And if we don't, fantastic. If we do, work out where the limits are. Could it be our second tractor? Definitely. We definitely don't work really long days in 2 tractors at once. That just doesn't happen for us. Again, maybe other people will. But there's a lot of farmers like us.
Well, when you get it, where Ray and I will take the journey down.
I think a lot of people might. I had a lot of farmer friends at that point. I think. Yeah, it's going to be.
Well, we've already driven one electric tractor, haven't we? That was,
We did. We've driven Ben Bamnett's one.
The little. It's a Leyland, isn't it?
Sunset EV.
Sunset EV. We took that for a spin around the field. That was good fun.
I liked it because it was an old tractor. It still had a gearbox, and it kind of still felt a bit alive. Mm. There was a noise to it. It played with your mind a little bit. You got in it, and you were like, as you drove, you thought you could hear an engine because you could hear the gears running, which you can't normally hear. But it kind of gave it that sort of, you had a bit of a character to it. I mean, it was also pretty fast. I mean, he said he scared himself.
Yeah, I was in New Zealand. I went to the Electric Cherries farm, which is and basically they had what's the brand? I forgot the tractor they got.
They
it's
had
the
Monarch.
The Monarch.
It's now gone bust.
Yes, annoyingly it's gone bust, but that's nothing to do with being electric. That's just there are a lot of issues in that company that and the design of the tractor in itself.
You
it
could
wasn't a
probably
very good tractor.
You could probably listen to an episode about that from March, I'd say.
I think, yeah.
Right, fair enough. So, but we raced that around a racetrack while I was there. It was quite fun. But But there's all sorts of other worlds it does open up. Maybe you can drive a bit faster on the road with trailers because you've got massive regen. Safer when you've got massive regen than using brakes. We've got these, and that extra weight, in fact, is helpful in sometimes.
Well, actually, don't say that to me. Go.
I know, because you like the small... Do you know, you have a great idea about this, though. And I saw this I went to visit EOX.
Okay.
So EOX, don't worry, most people don't know this one. They're making autonomous tractors. So it's essentially 170 horsepower. It weighs like 9 tons. It's the biggest remote controlled car I've ever driven. Super fun. But they're going around. But really, they shouldn't be that big. It should be lots of smaller autonomous ones. So where autonomy comes back in is where it really might open up the opportunity of electrification.
Again, everyone should be signposted to, I believe, episode 7 or 8, which I think was called "How Are You Going to Power That?" from 2 years ago, where we discussed the benefits of smaller, lighter swarms of machines and how that opens up and enables the use of electrification. So, I did have a question somewhere in here. Don't know, Ray, you go.
Well, I was going to say, I feel given all the conversations we've had of late, we probably need to give that one a do-over, and perhaps we need a few experts, including Stuart, to sort of advise on that one. That'd be an interesting retake to do. But I suppose, kind of questions-wise, I mean, we sort of asked what you see the biggest use case challenge is, but again, our audience is predominantly engineers, as you can see here. But
Absolutely packed crowd.
Absolutely packed crowd. Of which, so what other sort of, I always like to say, engineers love a challenge. What are your sort of top 3 challenges you could throw out there? You could say, other than the sort of the use case piece that we've kind of discussed, what are the top 3 challenges you could throw out and say, right, engineers really need to get their heads around this, and this if we're going to go in this direction?
I think, we talked about batteries. Batteries are key to it all. But I do think actually linking up farms with the grid is the biggest opportunity. Like you said, is the biggest challenge. It's something which is too complicated for farmers to be able to do on their own. And why should they become electrical engineers as well as being all the other things you have to do as a farmer? But if you can get the plug and play equipment that will allow your tractor to play on the grid. So that tractor, by the way, is about 200,000 odd euros. 200,000 odd pounds, something like that. Well, it's got 400 kilowatt hour battery on there. I just said you could trade on the grid and you're going to make £90,000 a year a megawatt hour. Well, let's just say £40,000 a year you're going to get back from your tractor trading on the grid. So if we link all these things up, that tractor suddenly becomes more profitable sitting in the shed, because the average hours over the year, how much do you use a tractor? It's 5% of the year. 95% of the year, the average tractor is sat in the garage doing absolutely nothing. What a wonderful thing if your combine could be doing more than combining over the winter.
Yeah, so we may have well discussed that a couple of weeks ago, actually, mightn't we? Sat around my dinner table. In another episode that will come out at some point. I won't be able to tell you when that is, but keep looking out for that. The thing that came to my mind was, sorry, if I've probably cut off your thing, Ray. We'll go back to your 3 things that are important.
I have to think of the other 2.
Yeah. The going back to the tractor, this is all over the place. You can tell what my brain's like. The regen thing is really interesting. Ben's got a really interesting anecdote about that. Again, we've said it several times for those who listen regularly. But when he is raking grass on his electric tractor, going downhill, he's pulling a rake, powering the rake, and still putting power into the battery. Yeah. So he's extending his day whilst doing a job, which is, again, just like you have to put all of those things into the mix when you're considering the replacement of diesel. It's not just...
It's not one for one.
Yeah, it's not a case of I need the same amount of energy in the tank. No, because you use that energy in a very different way, and ultimately you can create energy whilst on the job. So
okay, I've got you a second one. I'm going to lean into that. In fact, so when I was on that electric cherries farm with the Monarch tractor, and the Monarch has an output on the back for power offtake. One of the most inefficient things we could possibly do, and most unreliable, certainly one of the most dangerous, is use a PTO. Power takeoff on a normal tractor. I think we probably all know someone who's got caught in a PTO at some point and something awful has happened. Or certainly they've burned their arm at the least. If we could remove that from the system, there's a huge opportunity. So they had a sprayer out there, which ran with a normal PTO. They could manage 4 hours work on that sprayer. So it's not very much, really, is it? It's a bit not ideal. The sprayer company said, okay, we'll electrify the sprayer. So we'll put electric pumps all over it, and it'll use the power it needs. They could then do 12 hours work. That is significant. Then you don't need the massive batteries anymore. And if we could do that with loads of different power takeoff things, it's the same. I was actually monitoring the fuel usage on my Kubota diesel tractor. I had to do some mowing. I actually thought I had my second mower, my rear mower. I thought it was parked next to my front mower in a far off shed. So I went and put it on. The rear mower was not there. But I was like, it's too far to go home. I'll just mow with my front mower. It's not that much to do. But I monitored the fuel usage with just my front mower. And I'd already done the same thing with the rear mower as well. It used the same amount of fuel almost exactly because I was running at 1,000 RPM. If I was running at a 540, it'd be great. But as the front mower, I couldn't. So if you can take efficiencies, I know instantly that there's a massive efficiency loss in there. There must be, because that doesn't make any sense. So if we could electrify our equipment, I could tick over basically on my machine. There's also opportunities in hybrid machines as well, just for cutting fuel use in the interim. It's like cars. Hybrid has a place. I always call them the mini disc of cars. They were around for a while. They served a short purpose, but they'll ultimately be gone. I think, but there is so much potential in all these things. I think the things where it's hardest is like draft work. If you're ploughing, if you're digging deep, there's not much you can do about that to reduce the amount of energy consumption. Road use, you'll use way less fuel because most of us are driving tractors around really hilly roads, lots of junctions. We all know the brakes are smelling sometimes, going down some of the hills with some of our big weights we're putting. That wouldn't be a thing. I had a Tesla electric car for 6 years. It was the performance one, so it was bloody fast. And over that time, I did 60,000 miles. And when I sold it, I looked at the brake discs. The brake pads were still 90%. That is how little. And I drove at a reasonable lick, and I certainly used the brakes. I thought I wasn't really. It was the regen you can get going back into your battery is amazing, and for tractor use cases on roads, like putting trailers and whatever, gosh, it's a really, really good way of getting power back.
There's some big challenges there for engineers to kind of take on, I suppose.
I just the electric implement one. I think we just have to say this again, Ray. It's like it did come out. I think what was it? I tried to work out the other day. I think it was.
They do have one with an output now of a standard tractor.
Yeah, but Agritechnica, I want to say 15. Agritechnica 2015. There was Fendt had an electric rake. It was a Felon rake that was electrified, plugged into the back of a Fendt with a big orange cable. But I've never seen it outside of that room at Agritechnica, So where has that gone? I think that's a job for us. We need to do a bit of sleuthing, Ray. What happened to that?
It is one of my hobby horses when we talk about electrification, and we did in a conversation we had around your dining room table. We covered this as well around sort of if you're going to take the combustion engine out, take everything else out that supports it, because you don't need that drivetrain wise. But also electrification of implements is kind of a no-brainer especially if you've got a hydraulic drive instead, because they're incredibly inefficient. And I think
so many failure points too. Like on a combine harvester.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of failure points. I think the only challenge, and I look at this through my boring engineers compliance work eyes, is high voltages and cables and getting caught around things when you're hedge cutting or whatever it is. But it's not that you can't overcome them. I suppose that's probably our third challenge, isn't it? Electrification, but through the eyes of safety, and making sure that you can deliver it in a way that means that people can use it safely. You don't want to replace the PTO with an electrocution hazard, but that's where engineers can kind of play their piece to deliver the technology, deliver the capability, but in a way that's safe for people to use, disconnect, plug and play, all that.
So that is the thing you need, by the way. That John Deere plug is not the same as the one on the Monarch, which won't be the same as the one on the Fen. There needs to be a standardization now. That is really important. The outlets need to be standardized. It needs to be ICE-bus sort of style.
Yeah.
If they don't do that, you're back into this horrible game of having to buy the equipment from that manufacturer, or the equipment makers have to have multiple control systems available for their machines, which means you can never leave that environment in your... I couldn't have a John Deere in a Kubota. Wouldn't work. That's no good. We can't have that. We need to standardize straight away. And it's not complicated. I mean, we've done it with cars. To be honest, Europe's the perfect test case. Cars are the perfect test case. Europe's the perfect lever to make it happen. They've done it with connectors on your mobile phones. It's perfectly possible. And so I think that's the step challenge that, if you want to go do something, do that standard connector.
And you need like a 400-volt USB-C.
That's it, yeah. It's big.
Yeah, I feel it would be remiss not to also talk about farming systems within this reducing energy and electrification argument. I mean, you say the thing that's going to kill it is big draft work, pulling a cultivator, etc., or ploughing. But ultimately, we have to look at this holistically, and do we need to be doing those things, and should we be doing those things? Yeah. So, being that we're at Groundswell, I feel like that doesn't really need to be said, but it does need to be said. Actually, if you were farming in a frankly more sustainable way in the first place, then again, that's only making it easier to adopt these technologies.
Yeah, definitely. I think ploughing is something we should all be. Even if you want to plough shallower. Why is anyone ploughing at 9 inches? That is terrible for the biology in your soil. I know why, but it's terrible for biology in your soil. It's certainly bad for carbon, and it's terrible for your fuel bill. So, if you want to plough, there's ways and means of doing it in a different way. And in an organic system, we do need to plough sometimes. Fair enough. But we'll find out, to be honest, how well it ploughs, because I want to do these tests. We need that data. I'm talking very sort of, it's all going to work fine. I don't know it will. We have to go and get that data and work out whether it will work. And if it does, we all do it.
Great. Yeah, well, just the numbers on the ploughing thing is, I can pull these out of the back of my head somewhere. If you plough at 6 inches, you will move 1,800 tons of soil per hectare of land on a fairly normal sort of bulk density. So if you imagine a heap of soil that weighed 1,900 tons, 1,900 tons, that's a big heap of soil, and you would not, you'd think twice about getting stowed into that with your excavator. Yeah, we're doing that continually if you're pulling a plough. So it is a crazy, crazy amount of mass that we're moving. Ray, any final thoughts from you?
No, probably should wrap things up, but I think it's been really interesting to kind of get stuck into this. I feel like we've had a lot of kind of conversations along the same lines, and I think it's been good to kind of, when we spoke to Ben, and people should go and check out Ben Bamnett's episode, it's a really good one all about his journey and his tractor, but I think it's kind of it's been good, it's been great to get that kind of higher level view.
We've got Roger to come,
and we've got Roger as well that we're going to speak to, we have spoken to, and will come out in somewhere in the future.
Both great guys.
Yeah.
So I think we do somewhat have landed upon a theme of the moment, and it's going to be exciting to see how these tests and trials go.
Yeah, well, all you engineers, please get involved. I love it. Yes, please. We need more engineers involved with this, because we can engineer our way out of this, I think, in many ways.
Absolutely. Well, Stuart, thank you very much for.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thanks for inviting us. Actually.
Well, yeah, I hope
you.
you're doing tense.
And then we threw it back to you.
Thanks for allowing us to invite you to your own tent.
Well, it's convenient for me. I was already. Yeah, it's
Great.
convenient.
Cool. Well, if you have been, thank you very much for listening and watching, maybe. What's the other things we have to say, Ray? Ray, who are we going to tell to follow the pod this week?
Well, given everything that you've been involved in at Groundswell, I think you need to tell your yoga instructor.
I will. Namaste and listen to Brash Ag. Will do, Ray. That's a great one. So everyone remembers to like, subscribe, tell a friend, rate the pod. What else do you have to tell them to do, Ray? Contact us at contact@brash-ag.com, and we'll chat to you next time.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Raymond King and Kit Franklin. Brash Ag. Thank you, and tune in next time.